Hello, welcome to the start of my Read or DNF vlog. This is a video I've been planning for a while. I will link the video on the screen where I talked about the books on the TBR for this, but in case you missed that, I pulled a bunch of books off my TBR, like my physical TBR shelf at the end of last year that were books that I just wasn't sure about for various reasons. Either I didn't know a lot about them, I'd heard a lot of mixed things about them, I just kept glancing over them on my shelf and picking out books to read. So this is their kind of like final chance. So it's supposed to be like a final chance reading vlog of books that I'm either gonna finish them or I'm going to DNF them. So I'm also giving these books like 50 pages to decide if I'm intrigued enough to continue, and if I'm not by 50 pages, I will likely DNF them. So this is a way to kind of get that stack off my shelf one way or another. So the book that I'm starting with and that I've already started is Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. This is a YA fantasy debut. I believe it's now a duology. This is a Jamaican-inspired fantasy following two different witches in like rival factions, kind of like witch factions, political sides of everything that eventually will have to at some point come together and kind of work together on some of this political stuff that's going on. I'm reading it right now on audiobook. The audiobook's really good because there's two different narrators and they use Jamaican accents for the characters. So the audiobook is good. I'm listening to it right now. I think I'm 28% of the way into it. I've listened to it the last couple of days. I just didn't necessarily have an update because I was like, yep, still reading it. 25% of the way in. So that is where I am with that right now. Hello, so update on the reading vlog thing. I've DNF'd another book. I am DNFing this Witches Steeped in Gold. This is one that I was listening to on audiobook, as I previously mentioned. I got like 20% of the way into it, or 28, excuse me, percent of the way into it, and realized like, this is fun, but I'm not really caring a ton. I'm not really like super inclined to keep listening. I'm not like super looking forward to listening on my walks and things like that. It was just pretty slow moving. I mean, 28% of the way in is over 100 pages, and it just like not a lot was happening. It was kind of dragging. We weren't learning things at like a decent clip, especially for a YA book. So I think this book is fine. Would still recommend if you're looking for something like Jamaican inspired with witches, but I wasn't seeing a lot of the witchy stuff. It was just a lot of like sort of political machinations and putting people into different places, and it just was taking a very long time and I wasn't super intrigued. So I have moved on to The Midnight Lie by Marie Rudkowski, and this is actually a book that I had originally started to read I think in 2021 or possibly 2020, and DNF'd for then. And I like flew through 100 pages of it yesterday. So I'm enjoying this one slightly more, having picked it up again after not being in the mood previously. So that last clip was filmed in January. It is now the end of June. That was not intentional, but there was some SD card mishaps and I have lost the footage for the next 3 books that I read in this vlog. So I'm gonna fill you in now, months later. Since this is a months-long project and I'm not necessarily getting to books on this list like immediately, that's why it's kind of taking so long. But yeah, look, I'm like a totally different person now. The hair's longer, the hair's longer. Yeah, I read 3 more books on the list and I end up enjoying all of them, reading them, not having to DNF them, so that's cool. So I mentioned in that last clip that I was reading The Midnight Lie by Marie Rudkowski and I ended up really enjoying this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Now, since it was January, it's been a little bit of me having my like reactions and everything, but I will try my best. I really liked that this is sapphic. I like that it takes place in the same world as The Winter's Crime, but isn't necessarily, or The Winter's Trilogy. I just always think of The Winter's Trilogy as The Winter's Crime because it's the best book in the trilogy. I like that it takes place in that world. There's some hints to it, but it's not necessarily like a full thing. There is some hints of some of our characters from the first book, maybe not being completely in line with who we thought they were, things like that with the first like series. But this can still be read as a standalone. I will say that as some time has passed, I'm now like forgetting some of the like big plot point things because I read this so quick. I read it in like 2 sittings. Like I read it so fast, but I really enjoyed it. I'll just need like a little recap kind of thing before I go into the next book, which I do want to get to this year. My library has it. I'm just gonna do like a library read for it, I'm pretty sure, because I don't like the new covers. I like how these looked, and then they changed them, which was tragic. But yeah, this one was 4 out of 5 stars for me. I really liked it. Then I read A Marvelous Light by Freya Marsky. This one I just listened to on audio, and it was just like fine. It was a 3-star read. It is a Achillean fantasy of manners, and I found like bits of it to be like kind of slow. I liked the relationship, like it was fine, but it was just very like mid to me. So not bad enough to like DNF, but not necessarily something that I was like, it was sticking out in my mind. Again, I don't remember any of the characters' names. I could tell that I've read it if I read like a synopsis of it or be like, oh right, it was that. But it's not something that like really stuck in my feelings or anything, but solid enough. especially if you like sort of a fantasy of manners type story. And the last thing I read on this list was Serpent and Dove by Shelby Marin. I've talked about this in a few different places now, I think, because of like wrap-ups and reviews and things. This I ended up liking, which surprised me and a lot of people, just like a 4-star. Maybe 3.75 because this is also one, well, no, this one I remember a lot more of the plot points of. I read it most recently as well, so that could also be part of it. But I like the witch hunter, witch dynamic. I like a lot of things about the witches. What I will say is a lot of people say that the series goes way downhill, and I have the next 2 books and I'm not like hella inclined to pick them up. So I don't know if I will just end up just like DNFing those or trying them. Like I'm really intrigued about like witch society, but people I've talked to have been like the next 2 books don't do anything for witch society. So I don't know if I'm going to try to pick them up and end up DNFing them because they are boring. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But like this, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a slow burn as everyone was making it out to be. I felt like they end up liking each other way quicker than they should have, especially for a trilogy. A trilogy? You really could have drawn that out. We'll see how I end up feeling. Maybe I'll end up liking it more than other people. Again, I'm going into this with the bar so low because a lot of people haven't liked it and like the hype for it really died off. So I almost feel like I'm having a better time with books like this where I go in with such a low bar that I end up being like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like this feels like the moment this had is sort of what's happening with Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarrow right now, as I'm filming this. And I almost feel like Fourth Wing might be in this situation in like 4 years. Like if I ever read Fourth Wing, it won't be anytime soon. It'll be in like 4 years when I'm like gonna have 0 expectations for it and probably like expect it to be poor and then like it. I don't know. Sometimes that happens with me when I just give hyped books so much space. So anyway, this was decent-ish for what it is. It was fun cotton candy for what it is. It is December 17th, and I haven't read the rest of these. I barely looked at them. Sometimes I will look and be like, oh, should I read another book off for the vlog, for the project? No. No, and then I don't. So I'm gonna get rid of all of these, which I see them and I'm like, ugh, some of these I still want to try, but I'm like, you know what? It's been a year. I created the TBR for this vlog project a year ago, and if you can tell from my hair from the last clip, it's been months since I've even read one of the books from this list. So, apparently I don't want to read them enough, which is part of this like project thing. Like I kind of told myself like, oh yeah, if you don't read them, you're gonna get rid of them, and now I'm going to. Like even though my brain's like, well, you can start now. No. What I've learned from this is if I try to do a project like this, like I just have to commit a month to it to just do it, because if I give myself like, oh yeah, just like do it at whatever pace you want to do it, I'm not going to do it. Which then sort of proves that I don't really want to read the books that bad anyway. And the thing about books is all of these, I can get them from the library if I want to read them at some point. I can get them from the library. So yeah, none of these stood out enough to me to want to take time out of my like TBR reading or just basically prioritize them. Like, yeah. So I would say mission successful in that way of like this, instead of them just like languishing on my shelves, this made me go, no. A year has passed. Also, 2023 was a very fast year for me for some reason. Like it truly feels like it was just January. I don't know how it happened. I did it, but not in the way that I planned on doing it. So yeah, I really do still like these kinds of projects and things. And I plan to do something like this, not necessarily like this, but like I like this kind of project reading that a number of my friends do this kind of thing. And I want to be more focused on that sometimes if I have an idea for something. But now I know it's not like get it done when you get it done. It's like, no, if you're going to do a project, commit to the project. And you're doing just that kind of reading for a month. And if you don't want to do that, then you're not doing the project. So yeah, these are all going to a little free library by my house. But comment below, let me know if you've ever done any kind of like project reading like this, if you've ever had this kind of like very decisive, if you don't read it, you're getting rid of it kind of thing. I've done this in spurts before a little bit of like giving myself some of these guidelines, but I think this is the biggest pile in which this has happened to. But yeah, comment below, let me know your thoughts. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you all guys soon. Bye.